Hello, this is Jorge Monraz. I'm presenting my web application, which is called medipred. This is a healthcare management system that will help users create patients, schedule appointments, manage different roles within the system, and then also analyze some metrics to identify if a patient has a high risk of developing disease in the future, such as diabetes, cancer, heart disease, or Alzheimer. First of all, I want to show my React project. This application is going to be using React, Django, and then PostgreSQL as a database. First of all, the React project is going to be used to handle everything for the front end and user interface. So in here we can see that I have created multiple components that help me reuse them throughout my app. So it's easier to identify different parts of my application and then connect everything up. On my app JavaScript file, I have right here, I have this authenticated variable. This communicates with the user context file. This basically helps me know if the user is authenticated or not, and this keeps the authenticated value true throughout the app as long as the user is logged in the app. And with that, I can access the user information from the database, so it's easier to manipulate the data and then know which user is currently logged in the system. Um, Another part that I want to show is my login form. In here is where I have one of the most important logics of the application, which is validating the credentials of the user. Since this is a healthcare management app, it's very important that sensitive data is hidden and the correct user is able to log into the system, and users that are not registered are not able to see anything in the system or are not even able to log into the system. So in here I have multiple use state hooks which help me re-render the the application based on if the user is logged in or not, or if the credentials are correct or not. I have all of that logic in here. Now I just want to start my application. I'm going to do this on a localhost URL. So basically this is my UI, which is React. In here I can log in as a user that I have as an admin. Right now it's not working because it cannot connect with my the Django backend. And if I see the console, there are some errors in there, which says network error connection refused. This means that it's not able to connect with my Django application. In that case, I need to start my Django application by running this command. And now my Django application is run on this server URL. And in here on my settings in my Django project, I have my localhost whitelisted. So by this, only whitelisted URLs can access my Django backend. This keeps security on my application, so not everyone can access the application. Not all of the servers can access my application, my Django application, right? So on my Django application, I have different models. Right now, I only have the user model, but in here I will create the patient's model or any other models that I need in my application. And also my views, I have different methods and classes to register a user, to log in a user, and then validate the data. So for example, in here on the user login API view, this is basically an API endpoint that I have um, set up in here. So I use this endpoint on my React application to access this view in here. And basically this is receiving the request and then getting the username and password of the data object, which is a JSON object, which is sent through an HTTP request, and then using the authenticate method, that is a built-in method in the Django. And then in here I can verify if the user exists in the system. If not, it's going to say user login failed, and based on that I can manipulate my UI on React. Okay, so now that I have my server running, I can access my Django backend, which has my PostgreSQL database connected, which I have in here. Okay, so if I log in right now, it's gonna be logging me into the system, and then if we check the console, it's gonna also return a user object in here, right here. So I received a message from the Django, which if we take a look, it is right here. So this was authenticated. Sorry, it was on this one right here. So right here, this one was the user was authenticated, and then we send the user as a dictionary, as a JSON object, but only the fields to be included on that user object, which is only username, email, first name, and last name. So any sensitive data is only visible in the database. So I'm not sending that data through the HTTP request because that's sensitive data. Only the necessary fields are going to be sent to the application. So if you see right here, this is the only information that we receive. And if we take a look at the database, there's more information for that user, such as a password, these different fields in here. So those are not visible on my React application. Okay, so now I just want to show right here I created some UI for different graphs. So these graphs are gonna be rendered with my Django backend. So basically I'm going to create a machine learning object that's going to learn from historical data from different patients from hospitals. And then I'm gonna create some metrics and graphs using the scikit-learn on Python. And then I'm gonna send those image or the information of the graph as a JSON object, and then we render it with some libraries in React. Okay, so right now the only models that have been created is the analytics one. I just created some buttons in here. This is created with React. They don't have any functionality yet, but on the patients it is more developed. So I have a table in here that shows the information of the pages that have been created. This is not saved in the database yet, so this is some dummy text, but I will create all of this in the database and then consume the HTTP request from the Django to from React, and then display the data from the database in here. Right now, if we click on that, there's this form in here. Right now, if I input information, it's not currently working, but because I don't have it set it up yet. But these are all the fields that are going to be saved in the database for the patient object. And when I click save, it's going to call an endpoint on my Django backend and then save the patient into the database. Basically, that's it. Right here, I have the last thing is the logout functionality. If I click on that, then it's gonna remove the authenticated variable, and then it's gonna also remove all the information of the user from the React application. So if I try to log in right now, it's gonna ask me to input valid credentials. So right now I don't have any of the previous user that was logged in saved on my React application, and that helps me to maintain my app secure and don't compromise user information to any other user. So that's all. Thank you for watching.